Alright, so this will be our first video. Here. There we go. That's better. Almost. There we go. Alright.
I like the Mardi Gras.
The what?
Mardi Gras beads.
Mardi Gras.
You don't need to be Mardi Gras.
Alright. So yesterday we got briefly, well, we got into Sudetenland. I'm going to recap a little bit because I think we're 6 hours not quite to Sudetenland yet. But we were saying yesterday that supposedly the last territory that Hitler wants to take after taking Austria and the Anschluss is the Sudetenland. Sudetenland was not a country, but it was that little strip around Czechoslovakia. Czechoslovakia had been formed as a country after World War I. And so there were 3 million German speakers in Sudetenland, right? So I'll show you the map again, too. So 3 million German speakers living in Sudetenland on this border. But Hitler knows by this point, if he keeps going after new territories, he's going to eventually run into problems or backlash from the countries. So it's also in a country that's not like Austria that's willing to just give up the territory that easily. So he calls a meeting with all these leaders to come to Munich in Germany in September of '38. So the leader of Britain and France come to Munich in September of '38 to meet with Hitler, and he's like, hey guys, this is it. It's the last thing I want. It's the last area of German speakers. We're going to bring these guys in. That's it. I'm done after this. So he's making this promise that after he takes Sudetenland in the Munich conference, that in September '38, he doesn't plan to take over anything else. Yeah.
But they never got Switzerland.
Right. Well, it's a bunch of mountains, so it's too hard to take.
They're basically invincible.
And-
alive and bomb.
Exactly. Yeah. Anywho, so he, so basically, Britain and France give in because why? They want peace. They don't want another war, right? They feel like, okay, he says this is it. We're going to be good to go. Europe will be back to normal. Everything's back to normal. So they give in. They do what policy? Nope. Appeasement, right? And you want to make sure that you equate, and I'll write this down, like Munich Agreement equals appeasement. Because that comes up a lot of times in tests. That this idea of giving in to him one more time is going to be appeasing to Hitler, and he'll stop trying to conquer places. So the British Prime Minister, Neville Chamberlain, comes back to Britain, waving the document in hand, saying, we'll now know peace in our time. Like, he celebrates the decision, celebrates the deal, thinking that it's going to be a great triumph and that he has helped brought peace and prosperity to Europe and things will be prosperous. So this is a picture of Chamberlain right here in the screen holding the document whenever he returned. But in his home country, the leader of the opposition to him, Winston Churchill, greatly criticized his stance. So Churchill, not the leader yet, but Churchill at the time did recognize that Hitler was not going to stop. He basically called out this decision at the time and said, Hitler's never going to stop. He's going to keep trying to take over more and more territory. This did nothing. Bless you. But this is all hindsight, right? You know, we don't know. They don't know what's going to happen at the time. You know, they're just trying to make peace and make the war not happen. And so at this point, a guy like Churchill sounds what? Yeah, radical, you know, warmonger type, somebody who's not in touch with what's going on. So he gets denounced because of the things that he talks about or things that he says. So anyway, that's the other guy is the French president, Edouard Daladier. He also doesn't, he's not excited about the deal either. So he comes back to France, and he's met with a bunch of like applause and parades and people come up there celebrating him, but he also denounces the deal too, saying that it's not that great of a deal, and it may not work out in the end. So anyway,
France.
we conquered, right? So anyway, so that's so Sudetenland's it, and then you look at the U.S. response to all this. FDR recognizes the dangers of fascist aggression, but he's limited by all the isolationist feels back home. So FDR recognizes all this fascist aggression is going to be bad, and we should do more to help or prevent it, but he's limited by the strong feelings of isolationism in the late 30s. As we said, he suggested getting involved with Japan directly. He suggested quarantining Japan But that got a big negative reaction. So we talked about FDR talked about intervening with Japan and quarantining them, but that got a big negative reaction. So he drops the idea. Congress and the American mood is just too strong, isolationist at this point, and so no one wants to get involved. But he does kind of go back to that same idea that was brought up before World War I of preparedness. So, Collingwood Wilson did. FDR does bring up this idea of preparedness. Well, what if something happens to us, right? We should do some kind of measure to get prepared. So, like Wilson in 1916, FDR does begin around 1938 to begin to argue for preparedness to maintain our neutrality and maintain our protection. So he does talk about this idea of preparedness. So he does convince Congress in 38 to increase military and naval budgets. So in 1938, he does influence Congress to pass a higher budget for the military and for the Navy. Isolationists were more willing to accept this idea because it's what idea? But it's also for what purpose? Self-defense, right? So basically, isolationists were kind of wary, but they're okay to accept this because it was all in the name of defense. And we weren't making some kind of giant war machine yet. We're just building up our military and spending more that way in case something happens, we'll have something, not nothing.
So basically, instead of if it's aggressive, then you don't spend money on the Coast Guard?
What?
I don't know.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I have one question.
Yes.
So, like, you said that they were trying to quarantine Japan, as in, like, the entire country?
Right. Basically not trade with them or even maybe block them off kind of a deal.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be that hard. Japanese
So, unsurprisingly, the very next year, in March of 1939, Czechoslovakia is going to be 100% taken over by the Nazis. So after taking Sudetenland, Hitler lied and broke his promise and oath, and he takes over all of Czechoslovakia. So after promising only to take Sudetenland, Hitler breaks his promise and decides to take over the entire country.
But then it's not really.
It was clear that at this point, it was clear Hitler's ambitions had a limit, and war was probably going to be unavoidable. But what's the response by Britain and France? Still nothing. But they're giving actual warnings. They're like, basically, if you do this again, we're going to declare war on you. So every time Hitler began to look at an area to take over, he gave speeches about this location for some time beforehand. So the territory he starts to talk about now after Czechoslovakia is Poland. So he spends a lot of that time over the next few months talking about Poland. And so Britain and France warn him that if he invades Poland, they're going to go to war with him. So like in that summer of 39, Britain and France are announcing, they don't react to Czechoslovakia being taken over, but they say, if you take over Poland, we're going to invade. We're going to declare war on you. America still doesn't do anything in all this, but basically Britain and France have had enough, and they're threatening to intervene now if he goes after Poland. The problem for Hitler, though, is that who also has historically controlled or influenced Poland?
Russia.
The Soviets, right? So the Soviets had control of Poland in the past. They just lost Poland in World War I whenever Poland became a new country after World War I ended. So he knows that if he goes after Poland, that could provoke what again? Which means you would have a what war? A two-front war, right? And Hitler wants to learn that lesson from World War I and not produce a two-front war. So he wants to take that side out. He doesn't want to lose a war fighting on two fronts like they did in World War I. And so he's going to actively try to avoid that from happening. So to the surprise of everybody, it's released in August of 1939 that Hitler was secretly meeting with the Soviets. So there's a big news story that comes out in August of 39 that Hitler and the Soviets met secretly, or the Germans and the Soviets met secretly, to develop a non-aggression pact. This is not a pledge of alliance. So this is not an alliance if that's what you think. And I would make sure I not write that. Huh?
It's a promise not to attack each other.
Right. So it's basically like two playground bullies saying, you stay on your side, I'll stay on my side, and we won't deal with each other. So this is not an alliance at all whatsoever. It's not a pledge to work together. It's just saying like, hey, you stay over here, I stay over here. If I attack this area, you will not attack me. So everybody is on red alert now because now the Soviets are saying that we're going to sit this out. We're not going to get involved. We're not going to fight. and we're signing this non-aggression pact with the Germans to stay out of it. Okay, even though communists and fascists are enemies because of their ideologies, they don't want to fight each other. That has a lot to do with Stalin. Stalin has no ambition to like expand his territories and conquer new areas.
So yeah, it's already the biggest country in the world.
But that's just not his thing, though. He's not trying to, because he knows that'll bring on war. He's not trying to do that. So he's just trying to maintain his own territories. What we don't find out until later with the non-aggression pact, a part of it that was secret is that whenever Hitler does take over Poland, Hitler's going to end up taking West Poland. He's going to end up giving East Poland to the Soviets. He also says that it can reclaim all those Baltic states. All those Baltic states that got created, like Latvia and Estonia, after World War I, that used to be Russia's, he says they can have them back once they take over Poland, and they're not going to intervene and take it from them. So that was not revealed until a few weeks later whenever he invades Poland, but it was part of the deal at the time, which is why Russia signed off on it. Russia signed off because they got part of Poland, and then Germany got the other part of Poland. So now Hitler can do what?
Freely invade Poland.
Freely invade Poland and start World War II, which he's about to do. So we're going to first